Ben Riggs presents Reading D&D Aloud. Episode 67. Corporations are colonizing your imagination for profit. Tabletop role-playing games are a liberation movement.
Greetings once again, internet hordes. Welcome to a podcast still in search of a name, as we have migrated greatly in content and scope. But there is no doubt about the greatness of the two joining me here today. I would like to begin with embarrassing poems that I wrote about both of these guys. So I'm going to start with a poem I have entitled Jonathan Tweet. Behold the mage of rules whose art is deep, the spellwright bold, our guest, Jonathan Tweet. From Ars Magica's birth to D20's grand reign, his hand has shaped the games that fire the brain. With visions vast, mechanics deft and true, he forged new worlds for countless fans to view. Tonight we call his wisdom to our show, to learn how tales of wizards first did grow.
All right, I want the audience to know I did not know you were going to do that.
And more prosaically, you were one of the designers of third edition, the lead designer of third edition, right?
That's right.
But you really burst onto the scene with Ars Magica, which is what we're going to discuss tonight. And the person who requested having this discussion is here, and here is a similarly embarrassing poem entitled Shannon Appelcline. Behold the sage who tracks our gaming lore, the chronicle of nerdy days of yore. From designers and dragons, he drops the whole lore, the wins, the fails, the beefs, the stats, and more. So buckle up, folks, because tonight we're online with gaming's hot chronicler, Shannon Appelcline.
I did not know either, and now I'm thinking of what rhymes with slaying the dragon.
You know, we live in a beautiful world. I might have to. This might have to become a thing. If I can embarrass everyone this much, it'd be a delight. But let me start with St. Olaf's College. So, Jonathan, you went to St. Olaf's, and I feel like it's a gaming hotbed that does not get enough attention because you went there, Mark Rein-Hagen went there, Lisa Stevens went there, John Nephew and Michelle.
So John Nephew went to Carleton, the better college. There are actually two liberal arts colleges in this one little town in southern Minnesota, and so he was at Carleton.
So could you just paint the scene of St. Olaf? I'm assuming we're talking about the mid 1980s. What was it like being there? What did you put in the water? Was it the same thing that was in Lake Geneva in 1974? What was it about that place that had all these gaming greats come out of it? And then after that, Shannon, I'm going to try and shut up.
I mean, that is an interesting question, how that all happened. I think in the Midwest, there's not a lot to do, especially in the winter. And so the opportunity cost of staying indoors and rolling dice and playing games isn't that high. And so St. Olaf, there's no S on it. It's St. Olaf. And there's, I'm sure, a theological reason for that because it's a Lutheran college instead of a Catholic one. But anyway, it's a fine regional liberal arts college, and it wasn't that difficult, especially because I was doing psychology and sociology. So I could, not very rigorous. And it meant that I had plenty of time to do other stuff. I was trying to get published as a freelancer, and I did eventually get something in different worlds, something about Call of Cthulhu. So that was fun. But it brought a bunch of people together. It gave us free time to play games. It wasn't rigorous or demanding, and it's in the middle of nowhere in southern Minnesota, so there wasn't a lot to distract us. And then uh, Mark Rein-Hagen sort of wanted to not write stuff for Chaosium and see if Chaosium would publish it, but like, hey, let's publish it ourselves. And he's the one who sort of corralled people together. Um, Nicole Lindroos is another gaming professional that came out of that same little group. And so I think it was an exciting time to be in games, and launching Whimsy Cards and Ars Magica sort of showed everyone that, hey, we can be professional game designers and game people, and so we went on and did that.
And I guess I should, just for the audience, shout out Mark Rein-Hagen went on to co-create Vampire the Masquerade. Lisa Stevens was the first employee at Wizards of the Coast, and which is to say nothing of her success at White Wolf and Lion Rampant, and then
And
co-founder of Paizo, I think,
yeah,
the title. I mean, that's crazy.
pretty amazing. Yeah.
And you were all in one car at one point, right? Like you were all
Yeah,
in the
I
same
mean,
car.
that's right. Yeah.
And Nicole Lindroos went on to Green Ronin with Chris
Yep.
Pramas.
That's right.
And one of the most amazing bits of trivia I have for St. Olaf is that a decade after you all were there, Christian Peterson was there. And he founded Fantasy Flight Games while he was there, which of course went
Wow.
on to be purchased by Asmodee and is a huge company now.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's really weird.
it's the type of thing I turn up when I'm writing all of these 150 or so histories. Whoa, St. Olaf, I've heard of that before. So
Huh.
when you first enter my history, Jonathan, it's doing what you just mentioned. You mentioned writing Call of Cthulhu
Yeah.
for
Different
different
worlds.
worlds, and you enter my history running a Call of Cthulhu game there at St. Olaf. I'm curious, how much of an influence was Chaosium on you all there, since you
It's a
also mentioned Mark
fantastic
talking
influence.
about
Thanks for asking. That's a softball question. Gigantic influence. We were big RuneQuest fans, Call of Cthulhu fans. Mark Rein-Hagen and I, and Nicole, and we uh, played a lot of RuneQuest and a lot of Call of Cthulhu. Lisa Stevens was more of an AD&D uh, player at that time, and we played some of that too. But Chaosium we sort of saw as the most talented or the most creative role-playing company. And they did board games too, even, right? Like Dragon Pass. So uh like we were in contact with them. I had already like exchanged mail with like real physical mail with Greg Stafford because I was doing freelancing. And then if you look at Ars Magica, it really did get inspired by RuneQuest and Call of Cthulhu. So Call of Cthulhu sort of showed that if you set something in a historical period, you open up a whole avenue of creative freedom for people. And so putting Ars Magica in the Middle Ages, I think, is um, reflects that. And RuneQuest had the cults that where you would become an initiate of a cult, and then that you would have a special philosophy and special magic and special enemies and friends and whatever. And then that obviously got repurposed as the houses of Hermes in Ars Magica, and having just a core system where everything works the same way. I mean, I maybe by that time lots of games did that, but I got into RuneQuest in 1979, maybe 78. I think no, I got the first edition before the 79 edition came out. I already had the first edition of RuneQuest. So that inspired us of especially me, that because I'm sort of the architect of the game system, but like have one system that makes everything sort of work the same way so that everything is straightforward. So Chaosium was a huge influence on us. Um, and we're very conscious of that at the time. And um, I will say that in some sense, RuneQuest was also a negative example for me because it was um, the system and the setting were completely independent from each other, and in fact, don't even really go along together that well. And so RuneQuest frustrated us to some degree because there's this lush, rich world filled with all these mythic mysteries to explore. And it's like, and we're worrying about what kind of armor we have on each of our limbs. But that's not the same thing. So um, it really prompted us to make the whole thing holistic and have it all feel like it's all part of itself. And also RuneQuest's introductory adventures like were terrible. I mean, everything was terrible. You go back to 1980, all the introductory adventures were terrible to some degree. And so it inspired me in particular, like we need to have a really good introductory adventure. So that's where the Storm Rider comes from. And I did a ton of beginner game stuff at Wizards later on. So thanks. I can't think of a bigger influence than for us than Chaosium. And we were both big fans.
Yeah, when Ben asked me, "Hey, what are your favorite games?" and I'll try and get someone from one of those games on, I told him Ars Magica,
Yeah.
our RuneQuest.
Oh,
So
nice.
that clearly came through. And the one I left out that I should have said was Pendragon, which
Yeah,
is
that's
again
right. So
Chaosium.
we admired Pendragon, but it had released when we were um, uh, I don't know, maybe I don't think we weren't working on Ars Magica yet, but we never that's the thing that we never got into. And if we were had been just a little younger, or if it released just a little earlier, I think we would have been big Pendragon fans. We read it, we played it, but it wasn't what RuneQuest and Call of Cthulhu were for us.
So you mentioned Storm Rider, which was
Yeah.
one of what you called your quick starts.
Yeah.
It followed the Bats of Versailles, which was an earlier one.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And
right.
and it what impresses me now looking at this, and I could probably repeat this again and again throughout this discussion, was how much it foreshadowed and predated the same work being done by the rest of the industry.
Oh,
Because
thank
here
you.
you were
Yeah.
doing a quick start saying, hey, what if people could just get into the game via, a single adventure? And I should note, I feel like it's much more mature than a lot of the ones that came later, because you actually put into it, how to learn and play the game and little snippets throughout.
Yeah. That's right.
But most people they think of quick starts, jump starts as something of the odd odds maybe that came out with the D20, but you did
Yeah.
it more than a decade earlier.
Yeah. That's right. And I got to say, there was some game that came out. Maybe it was the fight one where you fought as freedom fighters against the invaders of America, Price of Freedom.
Yeah.
I maybe it was that one, maybe it was another one. Anyway, I never played the game, but on the box it said something like has a quick start set or something, and I thought, oh, every game should have that. And maybe they called it a jump start set. But anyway, I know somebody did it before me because it wasn't my idea.
Yeah, the Frank Mintzer's D&D had a pretty good one in that the Red Box, which was 1983, had a little solo game that you played on your own, and
I
then it had
remember
a
that. That's
little
right.
lead you by your hand adventure, and so that was the first one I know of that really did. But Yaquinto, a publisher that probably no one
Oh
knows
yeah.
of nowadays, they were doing some things like that too.
Oh yeah. I liked your Quinto. Didn't know how to pronounce it, but
I don't know if that's right either. Um, I think generally, if people talk to me about Ars Magica, I tell them it is the most influential and innovative game in the industry that you have never played. Though I'm not actually sure that that's true anymore because Atlas just did their definitive edition and they raised $850,000 from
amazing.
5,000 patrons, suggesting there's still a lot of people out there who
Amazing.
like it.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
we were talking about it a little bit on Blue Sky last night, and was talking about actually because I'd written out a list of all of the innovative things that it did. Ars Magica did. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, we could talk about them individually, or I could run through a list, but I mean, just the fact that you were focusing on wizards, not just the Middle Ages, not
yeah,
just wizards, wizards
y-
in the Middle Ages.
yeah, yeah,
I kind of tend to call this storytelling, uh, mainly using White Wolf Slayer term, but
yeah.
you had Pendragon, you had Paranoia, you had Toon, and you had Ars Magica. And these were kind of the first games that said,
That's right.
what if we do a game that really figures out how to simulate a very, very specific type of fiction?
Yeah,
So,
Ghostbusters.
yeah,
Uh, uh,
Ghostbusters, that's on my list too.
and I put James Bond 007 as a
Hmm.
really early. But just like you said, how do we not have a generic simulation system, but how do we make a James Bond adventure or a Ghostbusters adventure, or in this case, a medieval wizard adventure? Yeah.
So what led you to that? What made you think I want to do that and not just another, my version of D&D?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I will say that first of all, the first game that Mark and I were doing was Mindscape, Adventures Across Infinite Possibilities, or something like that. And it was n not Torg, but weirder than Torg. It was just a big multidimensional mishmash of whatever. Uh, so and it wasn't until that bombed on the first play test that we switched. Oh, we need a new. So it's not like we've been harboring this desire for a long time. It was sort of like we need another, we need another concept. We need another game. Um, and it came about. I can, in fact, imagine the very story that appeared in Creepy magazine. I think it might have been Eerie magazine. But anyway, it's about a hero who goes to fight a wizard and he defeats all the wizard's minions. And as soon as he gets to the wizard just casts a spell on him and paralyzes him and cuts his heart out. Because what the wizard needed was the heart of a hero. So the wizard needed to put all these minions out there so that only a hero would show up. But the wizard was never in any danger, right? And I'm like, that's so different from a Dungeons and Dragons wizard or any wizard in role playing games because wizards had to be scaled down to match a guy with a sword and a shield, right? So in Dragon Quest, any any character, any non-player character has a 25% chance at least to resist any spell cast by any wizard. What? Like that's not a that so those were game wizards and I was for a long time I have been thinking what if wizards in a role-playing game could be as part, like really do it up right. And my initial inclination back in high school was they're not player characters, they're monsters. And then they're like dragons or whatever. And this was sort of like, how could we, what would it take to really do wizards right and really feel like, of course the wizard can start a fire with by snapping their fingers. Like you don't want to have a spell for it where someone checks it off a list or whatever. It's just something they should be able to do. And so that it was a lot of my design and maybe a lot of other people's design comes from dissatisfaction with what they have seen other places.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty continuum that I've seen all the way back from Tunnels and Trolls up.
Okay,
Ken
yeah,
St. Andreas said, "I hated D&D as I saw it, so I had to do something
yeah, that's right.
different." So there's a lot to kind of unbox and unwrap there because you just casually mentioned, "Hey, we wanted to do wizards and make them powerful," and that led to so many other things in the game
Yeah,
system that were so innovative too.
that's right.
Uh, one of them, and one that sadly I haven't seen many people duplicate, is the fact that Ars Magica has three different power levels of characters.
Yeah,
They have Grugs, who
yep,
are just kind of the dumb fighters, though
yep,
dumb is unfair, but they're just the fighters, not necessarily full characters.
that's right.
Though I have at least one player in one of my groups who refused to play anything but Grogs. Um, And
Yeah,
you have companions who are,
yeah,
just kind of normal people, maybe with a little bit of a supernatural twist.
yeah,
And then you have the Magi. And
yeah,
the Magi are clearly more powerful than the others.
yeah,
And you kind of got around any issues with this by saying, hey, you should play where switch up who you're playing, have a
right. That's right.
companion, have a mongoose, maybe
That's right.
even have a few grogs that you call your own and play different people in different
That's right.
adventures. And like I said, I haven't seen other people really do it, but I think it's a huge innovation. It's kind of
Yeah,
the foundation of your troop style role playing too, which
that's right.
is another huge innovation.
That's right. And so, like, I don't think we would have done troop style play if wasn't so natural for for a system where you have three levels of characters, and that means most of the time, most of the powerful characters in the group are not out adventuring. And that's a very opposite dynamic of Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. And so it makes it really easy to say, well, when your wizard is not adventuring because they're creating a magic item or researching a spell, then you're the game master and you can run, so since things exactly just as you say, because we wanted to do wizards good, we had to do uh multiple levels of power, and then in order to make the best benefit out of that, we did troop style play. So exactly, I had all these sort of knock-on effects.
Yeah, troop style play generally for people who aren't familiar with it, besides the fact that you can trade off characters, also means you're trading off who the GM is.
That's
And
right.
so I've run slash been in, I think, four different major Ars Magica campaigns over the years, and all of them we had three or four or five different active GMs. So that,
Wow, three or four or five active GMs.
well,
Yeah.
those groups were probably seven or eight people
Uh,
because we were in college, and so there
okay,
were lots of
sure.
people looking for things to do.
I mean, no, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, there's some of the most amazing games I've ever played in because of the, collaborative
That's
storytelling.
right.
Someone else would do something within their particular area. We usually
That's
divide
right.
up church, fairies, that between different people. And I'd be like, oh wow, I have to respond to that. I have to figure out how that, fits into the background story that I'd been telling. And so they created really amazing games. We played
That's right.
hundreds of sessions over those four
That's
campaigns.
amazing. And you're right. It's bigger than any one person. Any
Yes.
individual in the group looks at the campaign and it's like, I could not have done this myself. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason Jonathan and I exchanged just a tiny bit about some of the innovation of Ars Magica yesterday was because of the announcement by Critical Role that they're doing West March's style play for season four. And West March's style play isn't quite Stroop style play, but it means that the players are really driving the adventure. They decide what they're going to do. They gather together their group from a larger group, much like in Ars Magica, you're
Wow.
gathering together your
Yeah, that's right.
and then they tell the GM, you have to prepare this. We're going to be playing this next Friday at 7 p.m. See you then. But it was really amazing to see kind of the reinvention. And this is courtesy of Ben Robbins, who does the amazing Microscope game, which is
Yep.
another one of my
Yep.
favorites. It was his, hey, what happened if it was the players driving things instead of me in
Yeah.
a real extensive way? And now Critical Role is going to be doing it for season four.
That's exciting. Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
so.
player agency. I mean, that's why I like role-playing games.
Well,
One
another
reason.
one of the big innovations that strikes me, not just in Ars Magica, but pretty much your entire design resume, is player agency. And it's not just telling
Yeah.
players what to do, but in Ars Magica, you let them cast whatever spells you want.
Yeah.
In Over the Edge, you let them design whatever skills they want.
Yeah, that's right.
In Everway, you let them, figure out some of their character origins and challenges they're going to be faced based on their interpretations of tarot-like cards.
That's right.
And so the free farm, and that's definitely gone into the wider indie industry in a really
Yeah,
big way.
that's right.
Was that just player agency, or was there something more in weighing all of these free farm elements?
I mean, I don't mean to sound dorky or whatever, but I really the reason that I felt like I could devote my career to role-playing games is because they encourage people to be creative. They encourage everyday people to be creative on an amateur level in a way that they can take as seriously or as unseriously as they want. And there's so little of that in this world. The corporations are so good at getting you to care about their characters and their storylines and their fictional worlds. Can you get all the Pokemon? Which Harry Potter house are you? Whatever um it's I don't know, diabolical is too strong a word, but you know, people are making a bunch of money by colonizing your imagination, and role-playing games are a liberatory movement in that environment. And so I think the freeform stuff that you see, especially in Over the Edge, it sort of spilled out everywhere. Um, that's where it really started, and that was 1982. Um, it was give the people what they want. Like, let a thousand flowers bloom. Maybe that one didn't turn out well, but um, it was sort of that humanistic drive to improve the human condition by unlocking the creativity of the people who engage in these games. So. Yeah, that's a really big deal for me. I think Mark and I started that in the second edition of Ars Magica. You went from uh, uh, choosing details for your virtues and flaws to inventing them. So instead of, you get this many points for this flaw or this virtue or whatever, it became more like you figure out what you're good at. You get +1 on your skill checks in what situation? You invent it. And so there was more of that sort of really sort of freed things up. But it was really small, right? Like, as you've got a skill that you've picked from a list, and then your specialty or whatever is going to be something that you pick freely. So we were moving in that direction. Um,
So uh, we've mentioned Mark a few times.
yeah,
Did you want to say anything more about kind of what the split was on the work between Ars Magica? Because I want to make sure, and talking
sure.
to you about all the amazing things in it, that we don't accidentally leave him out, because he's of course an amazing designer too.
Yeah, that's right. So, um, it really was a collaboration. It was something that neither of us could have done alone. I think we challenge each other to come up with the concepts. How are we going to do this? What is this going to look like? How should these characters be described? Um, I think I did a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the mechanics. If you look at the core mechanics, you'll see they're kind of similar to what you see in third edition D&D, because they're basically the core mechanics that I had gleaned out of everything I had played in the 70s and 80s. Like, if you wanted to just like and the core mechanic of you roll a die and add a skill bonus and add an ability bonus, that actually was happening at the same time Cyberpunk came out in 1987 and had the same mechanic. Talislanta came out in 1987, I think, and had the same mechanic. I mean, not literally the same mechanic, but roll a die, add a bonus for your natural ability, and then a bonus for your trained ability. So it was, uh, so I could say I came up with that system, but it was like, obviously it was in the water at that time. Like, that was what had been percolated down. And strangely, it was Tunnels and Trolls that, and to me, really put me down this direction. Because if you look at Mercenary Spies and Private Eyes or Tunnels and Trolls Alternative Rules, they had a system where you could get a bonus on your saving rolls, and saving rolls were all based on abilities. And it's like, I've got fisticuffs, so I get +1 when I make a saving roll having to do with fisticuffs. So it's like, oh, that's kind of the Ars Magica system, or the Cyberpunk Talislanta system. So anyway, but I'm a big mechanics guy, so I did a bunch of the heavy lifting on the numbers, and then sort of the spirit and the vision and the whatever that we really collaborated on. And honestly, he sat down and did a ton of spells. Like, one of the things that we had to do is have so many spells that if a wizard if a player says, I cast I use my magic to make a 25th level spell that is Intelligomentum or whatever, you'd be able to look up Intelligomentum at level 25 and see what kind of spells you can do at that level. You've got to come up with a lot of spells. And he did, and that sort of put us over the hump of like being able to make that system work.
Yeah, actually, something I suspect most people don't know is that my creative work in role playing started with Ars Magica. I did a book called The Tribunal of Hermes, Rome, the Roman Tribunal. But I also was in charge of the magic section for
Oh,
third edition. And
that's
so
right.
I did two things for third edition, three things probably. I went through and because I'm kind of a statistical, indexy kind of guy, which is why I write histories now. I went
Nice.
through and tried to figure out what the foundation was for every single spell so that they all could be rigidly laid out, and this is what you should be able to do. You add these two things together and you get this. And then I added in even more than what Mark had, such as, there's no guideline for, a simple create fire at fifth level or 10th or
Right. That's
whatever.
right.
And
That's right.
so that was actually some of my first game design, going in and building on yours and Mark's
Good.
work there
Yeah,
for the
there's a lot
ad.
to be done there. That sounds like just what the system needed, I bet.
So one of the other things that's always, well, you talked about creativity, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things I love in gaming too. I love it
Yeah.
in role playing, and I love it in board games too. Board games where you're not just like moving things around, but you're kind of creating something that could be different in every single game. Those are the ones that I really enjoy. And so one of the many elements in Ars Magica that I really liked is the seasonal phase. I always think of it as a winter phase because that's what Pendragon's somewhat similar one is.
Oh, sure. That's right.
But in your seasonal phase, the Magi, they can write books, they
Yeah,
can learn from books, they
that's right.
can design magic items, as you said, they can design new spells. It's kind of some of the most openly creative work that I know of in a role-playing system.
Yeah.
And again, one that has been very little replicated. I think
Yeah.
there's some type of winter phase in the One Ring, as I recall.
Okay.
And like I said, Pendragon has a similar one.
Yeah.
Not a lot else. Where in the world did the innovation come from that, the idea for that, the inspiration?
So we already had the inspiration from Pendragon that things could go at a seasonal pace.
Hmm.
And that was important. And then again, we had this goal of um, a player would come to this game hoping to do something cool with a wizard and would be able to do that cool thing with their wizard. Like, I mean, it really, we needed to be able to satisfy what people expected a wizard ought to be able to do. A wizard needs to be able to make up new spells. Wizard needs to be able to make magic items. Like that's all standard stuff that wizards do. So they have to do that. We sort of had no choice, but like but to do that, right? Like that was we couldn't meet our goal without it. So it was a ton. I mean, you can imagine how much work it was to figure out what should the numbers be for how long it's going to take you to do what, and then you'll do what, and how much what. I mean, it's so yeah,
That, of course, kind of built out of yet another creative system in Ars Magica, which was the whole Covenant system. It is
yes, yeah,
um, one of the earliest systems I know where the players actually sit down before the game in a session zero, long
yeah,
before anyone used the
that's
phrase
right.
session zero,
That's right.
and they said, "What's our home going to be like?"
Yeah.
And I can pick out some scant things where people do it today. I think like Kids on Bikes, you define your town.
Yeah.
The Dresden role-playing game you do too, both, very indie games from recent decades. The only thing I could come up with before Ars Magica that did something similar was in Champions. You could
Yes.
design a danger room or a
Okay.
headquarters,
Yeah,
but they
that's
were
right.
very
That's
statistical.
very statistical. And that's what I was going to say is the approach ha that we had seen before was highly statistical. Like, what is your spaceship? In Traveler, you get a spaceship, and maybe you can
Hmm.
kit your spaceship out or whatever, but it's all very pragmatic. And the how's the covenant that you join or that you create that your wizards belong to? That's storytelling. That's like who who are you and where are you from and who are the people around you and what are you known for and what unfair reputations do you and your people have? And it is like our little band or our tribe or our nest. And so it has mechanical ramifications, but it's not uh but it's not strictly or even mostly mechanical. It's what you hang your stories on. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so the thing is, it's the wizards. It's pretty normal for the wizards to be all sucked away in a weird place in a tower or a castle doing their thing, and so that makes a lot of sense. And they're most role-playing games. They're not replicating characters who isolate themselves in towers, and so I don't. I'm not too surprised that you don't see it very often.
And it was, as you say, hugely inspirational for the storytelling. The
Hugely.
Roman Tribunal that I wrote, it was based on one of our campaigns, and we were in the catacombs under Rome.
So this is
But
what's really interesting that you bring this up is if someone tells me about their cool Everway experience, it's there's this really crazy realm that the game master invented or either invented where this thing happens and that thing happens and you know and the dogs all walk on two legs and whatever. It's some weird realm that they create. And for uh over the edge, it is the character that someone created, right? This person created a Japanese ogre and they shapeshifted and it did all this weird stuff. And if someone talks to me about the great experience they had in Ars Magica, they will say, "Oh, in our campaign, the Covenant was in the catacombs under Rome, or it was on wagons and we sailed across the high desert in Spain and right." But it's like you said, it's hugely beneficial to the narrative, and you can see that in like what do people talk about around their Ars Magica campaigns? What do they compare notes on and whatever, and how is it defined? It's that covenant. That's right.
yeah, I was looking. I have logs of 100 or more old games on my website, and I was looking at the last one, and I have all of the maps of the Covenant and stuff there because it was just always, it wasn't just our home space; it was inspirational for our home base, and we sometimes ran games there, and so if the Crusaders were rushing into the lab, we needed to know where the stairs were
That's
and
right.
and all of that.
That's right.
So had maps there, had maps of the territories, all of it.
Yeah, it's ears. That's music to my ears. That's what we wanted.
So I you did Ars Magica for I guess about 2 years.
Yeah,
And then you went off for a respectable career as you've
that's right.
said. What caused you to break that and decide now, no, respectable career wasn't the thing to do. You wanted to come back to give those people creativity like you'd been dreaming of.
Yeah, that's it. That's an interesting time in my life. So, um, Mark and I split up, not on great terms. I felt like I've done my role playing stint. There were lots of people at that time talking about the death of the role playing industry. It was before Magic came along and churned huge amounts of money into all these failing game stores around the country. So uh, I thought I'm going to try something else. And the only work I could really get was selling mutual funds for commission. And while I was doing that, I went to Gen Con and I started doing freelancing. I did stuff for John Nephew. Um, and he decided he wanted to publish the game that I was doing just for fun. That was the Over the Edge game. And that was the game that if I had thought I was going to publish it, I would have done it very differently. But I thought it was like, it's just for me and my friends, it can be as weird and goofy and free form as I want it to be. So that's where that game came from. And then John Nephew at Atlas Games, who again was the guy at Carlton, so we knew him from our Smagica days. He wanted to publish that. And then 18 months into my career selling mutual funds, my best friend and roommate said, remember, you were going to do that for 12 months and then decide whether it was really paying off like you wanted it to. And I thought, no, I had forgotten all about that. And it wasn't paying off the way the guy had sold me the job on, you know, I wasn't a manager running my own office yet, like I was supposed to be or whatever. Uh, and then I was also at that time hooking up and getting ready to marry someone with a stable career. That was um, my late wife. She was a college professor at the local college where my dad taught. And so I was like back into role-playing games, but as a freelancer. So I did the Over the Edge role-playing game and the Over the Edge card game, which made us all a ton of money until it got overprinted. Um, and I did a bunch of freelance stuff. I did freelance for this weird company in Seattle called Wizards of the Coast. I worked on their Talislanda game. And then, so that's how I got back into it. It was like selling mutual funds on commission just didn't pan out.
And as Ben said earlier, Lisa Stevens, who I
That's right.
believe was the third member of
That's right.
Lion Ramper,
That's right.
she
Sh
was the number one employee, number
That's
one
right.
paid employee.
That's right.
And so she brought you into their role to run their role-playing
Yeah. So
group.
she first of all was my contact to do freelance work for them. So I did freelance work on Talislanda for them. Uh, and then they made enough money on Magic that they could actually just hire me and John Tynes to come out and work there. So yeah, what really got me back into the field in a big way was Magic the Gathering making enough money for Wizards to hire me to come out.
Yeah, John Tynes, of course, being the head of Pagan Publishing, who was
That's right.
doing some of the most other creative work in the 90s, more
That's right.
thematic, while you were kind of doing the innovation in the systems.
That's right. And we were going to do a game together called Ohm's Law that I had gotten to the point at which I was play testing it, and he was going to publish it, and then we put those ideas on hold because I got hired, and then I hired him, and then we were working full time at Wizards.
Ooh, what else can you tell us about Ohm's Law?
I ran across my manuscript of it when I moved into my new wife's house, and I didn't realize how complete it was. Like I had forgotten that it got to the point where I had outside playtesters playing it. So I'm looking it all over. And it's like, oh wow, I look at this. There's a list of psychic powers. I don't remember that. And so um, I think I've got to bring it to life at some point in some phase. I might do a really easy thing where friends of mine can sign up for it on Kickstarter, and I'll send them sort of copies of my, dot matrix printed rule set, or maybe I'll scan it into text and do it up nice. And but it seems like it should see the light of day. It's the 90s role playing game that never was. It's like I opened a time capsule.
I mean, we get a lot of publishers that listen to this, so a lot of so if you're interested in publishing Jonathan Tweet's lost masterpiece,
That's
Ohm's
right.
Law, please
Well,
email somebody. I'm reading D&D aloud. Admin at readingdndaloud.net, and I'll forward it on to Jonathan.
That's right. And if I do go on Kickstarter or something, I'll have a top tier award for one person, which is you buy the rights and can publish the game. So that's Ohm's Law. That's I've it's very gratifying to look over that and realize, wow, I've done even more game design work than I can remember.
I I am shocked to hear there's a lost Jonathan Tweet manuscript.
A lot of the when Delta Green was on Quinn's Quest, they casually mentioned, I think that Delta Green was the work of John Tynes or something like. something like that, and really just ignored all of the other pagan and Delta Green guys, which is a shame and is unfortunate. But there is a true romance around John Tynes as a personality. So I'm going to ask the irritating question of what was John Tynes like in the 90s?
I am not going to tell you. Oh man,
Ah!
I not on this podcast. I mean, he was great. No, he was really creative and interesting, and I got to know him at Gen Con because of obviously Pagan Publishing. They had their latest issue of Unspeakable Oath, which was their Call of Cthulhu fan, like professional level fan
Let's
magazine,
call it a splatterzine.
Splatterzine. Yeah. Uh, it had a cover with a gross obese deity on the front, and they were not allowed to sell it, have that be visible. They could sell it from under the counter, but they couldn't have it on top of the counter. And so that got my interest. So I went over there to see what was going on with these people. The rumor was that somebody thought the obese, horrible god creature looked like the CEO of a TSR, and she, and they didn't. But it's like I don't think that's true. I think that was just a rumor. Anyway, that's how I got to know him. He was super creative. He showed me Akira, I think. Like I visited him in St. Louis. I was living in the Quad Cities north of there. Um, and so he knew my wife, and we were good friends. He's great to work with. He made me a stupidly good offer on Ohm's Law, which included me retaining all the rights. And I was like, it's a weird way for you to work, but okay. So that would have been it would have been interesting if I hadn't gotten the job at Wizards and we had gone through with Ohm's Law. I would be curious to see how that would have turned out. Um, and just a lovely person. And so when Peter said I could hire somebody to work with me, I hired him. And then he left Wizards because he said it had gotten too big, and now he's back at Wizards as the VP of digital. Is that right?
I'll go check on LinkedIn while you guys talk.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I
So
did not know he was back at Wizards.
he
He,
did
of
well.
course,
So he did a big stint at Microsoft. So I think he got used to the idea of working for a big corporation.
yeah. And he, of course, did Call of Cthulhu D20 for them, bringing back Cthulhu to all kind of
I
circled
mean,
around.
yeah, Cthulhu really is just very formative for people. I know Richard Garfield talked about how formative it was. Again, setting it in the real world lets people be so much more creative. Like you come to a weird town. What do you do in this town? You can do anything, and all sorts of things can happen to you. And it just taught me like your character can approach a role-playing situation kind of holistically as part of a whole world. It's really neat.
So I have report that John is the design director of digital games at Wizards of the Coast.
Okay, there you go.
So he's the poor guy trying to do the thing that will be as popular as Baldur's Gate 3.
I mean, I don't envy him.
No. So I think maybe the last thing I kind of have on my list of a lot of the innovations of Ars Magica is one that we've touched on before, but it's the medieval world. Like you were
Yeah,
just saying, put things in the
yeah,
real world opens up a lot of creativity.
yeah,
But what I always found really neat about Mythic Europe was
yeah,
not just the fact that it was Europe, but the fact that it was mythic, the kind of whole
yeah, yeah,
belief that all the folklore, all
yeah,
of the beliefs, everything you've ever read in Grimm's fairy tales
yeah,
are, you
yeah.
know, it's all actually real. That's kind of the foundation. Um,
Yes. And maybe that also comes from RuneQuest, from Glorantha, which is
mm,
it's this mythical world where I think I read somewhere that birds fly because when they swing their wings up and down, that's a prayer to the air god. And everything there is mythical. Everything has a mythic origin and a mythic destiny. And so I that's probably where we came up with the Mythic Europe idea. Um, and it was also maybe sort of just liberal open-mindedness. I felt the other way to do it is it's things are much more literal and physical and physics oriented. Like Hardmaster does that. So in Hard you've got spells and monsters or whatever, but it's almost like science fiction in a world with psychic powers or whatever, and doesn't have the mythic tenor that boy, it just wouldn't be Ars Magica without that.
I guess the other way you could do it is you go Warhammer Fantasy and everything is so, grim and, which is great background too. But it's, just as Hornmaster is, it's really the opposite of Ars Magica in a lot of ways, just kind of along a different axis.
Yes, that's right. I mean, I my impression of like Warhammer Fantasy is your limitations are part of the world, right? Like the world is not your friend, and you're a rat catcher, and this is what you've got, and good luck, right?
Yeah,
Um,
Ratcatcher is just where I went to
yeah.
because
So
I think it
that's
really,
interesting, right? That's a very different way to approach it.
yeah, and very cool too, but
Very
as you
cool.
say, very
Yeah.
different. So something that you've taught me today is I never understood why I loved both RuneQuest and Ars Magica because I never really understood intellectually what the visceral similarities were, but I do now. It's very cool.
Good. Yeah, no, that's right. So third edition D&D has a whole lot of RuneQuest mechanics. And that's Steve Perrin's mechanics. It's very different from Greg Stafford's Glorantha. Um, but yeah, we were so Ars Magica it looks very different, right? Looks really different from RuneQuest, but like you say, the visceral, the level of myth and the way that your character becomes part of a greater mythic destiny or whatever. Yeah, that's very similar.
Yeah, and I
Well,
think
go ahead. So go ahead, Shannon.
I was just going to say, I think kind of the other thing that you look at is what you were just mentioning, D&D 3E. We were talking about how influential Ars Magica was. And yeah, a lot of that turns out. I mean, there's obviously the die plus bonus system in
Yeah,
D&D 3E,
that's right.
which hadn't been there before.
Yeah,
But also like feats. Feats
yeah,
are a way to
yeah,
kind of suddenly turn your characters from zero to hero,
yeah,
but
yeah,
foundationally instead. They can do super heroic things now, which is certainly one of the most exciting things
yeah,
about 3E and 4E and
yeah,
5E. 'Cause it's
yeah,
continued to influence.
yeah. That's right. Yeah, we did that's right. I think if you look back at D&D in 1974, there was this idea that the default experience is you're a guy with a sword and a shield and you're a regular guy. And anything special is what you have acquired. And I think with third edition we did, I think we loosened it up more and like for example with feats or whatever, and just let you do more fun stuff. Yeah,
Well, to wrap up, I'm going to say the Storm Rider is available on the Atlas Games website in PDF. So I'll admit that your discussion of it has me wanting to go and read that and check it out. Um,
yeah.
Shannon, I think this is an easy question for you, but what can people buy that would put royalties in your pocket?
Uh, this is free. Oh, I don't have it behind me today. This is Free Trader Beowulf is my newest book. It's my history of Traveler. And Designers and Dragons are still available in PDF and pods. And we're going to be doing new editions in the years to come. But for now, you can pick those up, and those both send royalties my way. Um,
And Jonathan, is there anything that people can purchase of yours that will send you royalties?
Yes, but I want to break in first and say before we wrap up, you should ask me if there's anything more about Ars Magica I want to say before we close.
Jonathan, is there anything more about Ars Magica you want to say before we close?
Yes, I want credit for doing layout. That's the one secret thing that people don't realize is I laid this whole book out on PageMaker on the Macintosh, which was a new thing. We haven't had these weird little graphics or whatever that one of our friends did on, pixel point art. It's pretty terrible. But by 1987 standards, it was really good. And I just want that's something that not everyone knows
I
about
did
me.
not know you did, and I always look at those cartouched boxes and the
Yep.
double lines and stuff very fondly because they speak of a particular area in desktop publishing that was very,
Yeah,
very
we had
early.
the scroll image, and we could make the scrolls longer or shorter for put more or less text in it. I mean, that was fancy.
Yeah, that same year that you put out Ars Magica, I did my first year of journalism for the school paper in my high school, and we were still laying things out on with wax.
Yeah, that so when Mark's father found out that we were going to self-publish, he was like, I got you all set up. I got a light table, I got the X-Acto blades, I got the wax, I got everything, and we're like,
Yeah,
nope, it's the future. And so now
The future.
you can look at because of the printing, it was just laser printing, like you can look at the text and see the tiny little dots, right? It's
yeah.
not 87. So, the easiest way to put royalties in my pocket would be buy something for Over the Edge. That's the thing that I still get royalties on, and it's a great game. There's lots of cool stuff for it. But I would encourage people to buy Grandmother Fish, which is the first book to teach evolution to preschoolers, because I think teaching evolution to kids is another super important thing that I have devoted a lot of my life to trying to figure out how to do right. And we got a big enough advance on this that I'm not going to see maybe royalties on it ever. I've already been paid, but would love for you to spread the word because we want little kids to learn about evolution before they get old enough to play Over the Edge or Ars Magica or whatever.
I have a preschooler and have not yet acquired that book, so I'll go
Oh,
buy it.
you should definitely, and then let me know how it turns out. It is kind of a role-playing book
Hmm.
because the kid mimics the sounds and motions of our evolutionary ancestors. So wiggle like a fish or hoot 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 like an ape, right? So it's role-playing. It's LARPing.
So I will close by saying that the book that I'm working on, which I thought was going to be sort of an OGL scandal focused book because it's the hot sexy thing, like uh, my editor and I had a meeting and he's like, I want more history in this. Couldn't you just do like a history of D&D from the end of slaying the dragon to as soon to now as you can get? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, yeah. So Jonathan, I will tell you that I think I have 15,000 words written on third edition already, but I have I think
Wow.
2,000 words written on 3.5.
Okay.
Um, but we'll definitely have to talk more because I guess I have a couple 100,000 words to fill.
Yeah, I
So
I might have lots to say.
I would appreciate that. And I feel like I covered a lot of this with you before, but I'm sure there's more to say now. So uh Shannon, I can't thank you enough for being on here. Jonathan, I can't thank you enough for finding the time. Folks, this was kind of a last minute thing because I had a lot of cancellations this week. So guys, I really appreciate you coming on a Friday night to talk.
This was a ton of fun. Yeah. Thanks for setting
Thanks
this
for
up.
having.
Yeah. No, I'm really happy that this came about.
Yeah, I'll keep it.
And
I'll
it's
keep it.
great hanging out with you and talking to you and maybe telling you some things that even you didn't know.
All right, gents. Well, Shannon, have a nice evening. Jonathan, you too. And I'm going to go to bed.